So hey guys, today we are talking about ritual monsters. So ritual monsters are essentially just uh like almost a worse version of fusion summoning. That is one way to look at it. So if we look at it very basic, so let's say we have a ritual monster, that doesn't really matter what it is. We need in order to summon a ritual monster, we need our ritual monster. So this one, sure. And then we need our ritual spell. So whatever that ritual spell is. And then we need a monster to tribute to summon our ritual monster, or perhaps monsters, depending on the levels of the monsters we have. So, for example, with this one, this would be somewhat annoying if we were just to focus on the mechanic of ritual summoning. We would need a level 8 monster, which means it can't be normal summoned, and then we need a ritual spell to ritual summon our ritual monster. So the benefit, to an extent, is that there's a pretty cracked card we have. So as you can see with Shinato, King of a Higher Plane here, this card can only be ritual summoned with the ritual spell card, Shinato's Arc. So with listing Shinato's Arc, we have the ability to add specifically with pre-prep. So preparation of rights doesn't quite get us there. This only allows us to search Shinato. But on the bright side, this doesn't work for the ritual spell, right? If we do open the ritual spell, we can still, because this is not hard once per turn, we can add 2 copies of Shinato. So Shinato would be able to tribute itself to special summon itself. What does this do even? Pretty much nothing. Okay. So if we have pre-prep, this is a little bit better. We'd be able to add Shinato and also Shinato's Arc. So then we'd be able to only need 2 cards in hand. So in this case, it'd be like pre-prep plus a level 8 monster. So it's a little better in that regard. But there are some ritual monsters that don't actually mention on their card text specifically. Yeah, they have to mention a ritual spell, and then you still have to run said ritual spell, and then you need to open the unsearchable card, pre-preparation of rights. So this is arguably like a band-aid fix. Like, sure, you can pre-prep to add like 2 cards, epic, but like other decks, they can just 1 card, right? So instead of like trying to get pre-prep, like Snake Eyes, for example, will be like, all right, we have Bonfire, we have Snake Ayash, we have Diabellstar, Wanted, we have Original Sinful Spot. Yeah, all those kind of work, right? Meanwhile, here it's like we need this card, this card, this card, and that's like the starting point, right? So 3 cards. So fusion summoning before was kind of like this, but to a lesser extent, right? So the it was just moderately better because instead of needing the extra deck monster you're trying to, or instead of needing the boss monster you're trying to summon to be in your main deck, it's just simply in your extra deck. So then you still need essentially 3 cards because there's no fusion summon that's done with only like 1 monster. But you generally will have main deck monsters that do something rather than a ritual spell that only ritual summons, right? So you're like slightly better off. So ritual monsters are just completely dead in hand and only do stuff on field. Generally speaking, that's how uh, ritual monsters work, right? And then with fusion, you had your fusion monster in your extra deck, and then you had your main deck monsters which you'd use for whatever, and then you use your fusion card, spell, trap, whatever effect, and that would do your fusion summon. And that was a little bit like moderately better, you know? Imagine if you needed to like search DPE from your like deck and add it to your hand before you could summon it. And also you need the materials for its summon, And also the card that allows you to summon it. At this point it sounds like you're trying to get Exodia, like except that there is no win the game, win con, it like Yeah, whatever this effect is, that's what you end up getting. Yay. And also, like, I mean, for the most part, the quality of like the ritual monsters just in general, not that great. But when was the last time we got like some really good extra deck monsters? I guess it's like Herald of Ultimateness, Armor Factor Pain. These guys are kind of like Floodgate territory though, honestly. So if we look aside away from those ones, that I don't even know if you can realistically use this in a ritual deck. I haven't seen anyone really play Odd Eyes Ritual. Not that I know how it would be played, but I wonder. Dogmatic? I think Dogmatic's kind of like annoying, but it's not like unfair, right? Not really, at least. Makanko doesn't play like a ritual deck at all, which is like a good thing, bad thing, whatever. And then Drytron has like a completely different ritual summoning mechanic that does not follow like how ritual summons work. Speaking of which, ritual summons are actually more annoying than fusion summons to begin with because they have like jank rulings. So, for example, a good example I believe was like if you had Ophiel, and then you have a level 8 ritual monster, like two level 8 ritual monsters in your hand, you can't ritual summon because you need to uh with Ophiel, let's see. So let's grab Ophiel and then actually I should have searched Megalith. Okay. So let's see, say we have Ophiel on field is searched Phalag and we have Bether in hand. We cannot ritual summon Bether. We cannot ritual summon Phalag. The reason being the fun wording on this card. During your main phase, you can activate this effect. Ritual summon one ritual monster from your hand by attributing monsters from your hand or field, including this card on your field whose total levels equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster. Because of how the ruling works, yeah, because it needs to include Ophiel, we can't tribute Balag and Ophiel for like Bether because a certain ruling forces you to like, let's say we have Megalith and Ophiel in hand, right? We can't ritual summon by tributing Ophiel and Phalag. We had like another level 4 monster, I guess. Like, say we have another Ophiel. We can use these two Ophiel to summon the Bether, but we can never use like Ophiel plus Phalag to summon the Bether. Okay? That's just not possible. And that ruling actually creeps its way to this, where if we have just these three and this on field, you can't ritual summon this. So, yeah, pretty miserable overall, right? And just to, throw in like some other fun stuff, just jank in general. Uh, these guys all have like, in general, like I'm pretty sure none of these guys actually have effects in the hand. Like some of them have, like Ben 10 have. If this card is tributed, add one light fairy monster from your deck to your hand. Not hard once per turn. It's kind of like abusable. And then like for Libromancer, I believe, the way these guys get ritual summoned is just pretty jank as well. So the main deck monsters just end up doing a lot of searching. And the field spell has no such thing as a once per turn. So you can just keep ritual summoning guys with it. Epic. And then Illusion of Chaos just isn't really used as a ritual monster, I don't think. So that's cool, I guess. And then for some reason, like cards like the incantation stuff, this ritual locks you. So that's fine, I guess. Let's see what this says exactly. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck. That's fun, I guess. So you lock there, and also the quality of boss monsters and like all that is not that great. So another jank thing, right, is technically there are some cards that can special summon, right? Ritual monsters are just essentially just extra deck monsters, but they're in your main deck. That's one way to look at them. So if we look at them that way, they still need to be properly summoned, and they can be improperly summoned as well. So that's great. And this also means you cannot like just in general, you can't special summon a ritual monster from the graveyard, you know, to your field. Which I mean, sure that's how the mechanic works. I guess that's fine. But then I don't know, like Meglyphs, uh, they don't have any like ritual spells. They have like ritual monsters that summon ritual monsters and ritual summon because they have the word ritual summon on them, you know, like so. And I mean, that's jank. And then some of their effects are non-generic, some are generic, and it seems like nonsensical. Like some ritual spells allow you to summon like any ritual monster, and then there's some that just don't let you do that. And then there's some cards that just generically search other ritual cards. Like this is just add one ritual spell from your deck to your hand. I don't know. It's just randomly so generic. Just add any ritual spell in the game to your hand for whatever reason. And then Battle Lord adds any ritual monster, which allows you to add Benten, which makes me question like what is the point of this? And then there's like Diviner, which works well with specifically Sprite Elf, because it can be resummoned for stuff. So that's good at least if nothing else is. So yeah. In terms of like good ritual archetypes, let's just real quick check what we have. Vendread. Vendread is okay after support, actually. It's not that bad. Novels. No idea what this deck is supposed to realistically do. Kind of annoying. But they have a lot of like non-targeting removal. So cool, I guess. And their interactions like somewhat interesting and how their mechanics work, but your win count, I guess, to an extent, is your opponent not knowing what your cards do. And then aside from that, I guess there's Mikanko. Libromancer's like alright, I guess. And then like Drytron, of course, and then all that very stuff. That's like fine as well. Like we're talking about like competency. It's like a competent enough deck. Prediction Princess is just essentially hero. Same energy. Uh Combo, make fluid gates. Kinda like worst version of Drytron, I guess. One could look at it that way. But I mean I guess Drytron doesn't literally floodgate, it just negates everything you do. So pretty much a floodgate, yeah. It's just skill drain. Except it starts a chain. I guess that's a good way to describe it. And then we have Mikanko. Jank going second deck. I mean, I can do some things going first. So, like as a ritual deck, I don't see this as a ritual deck because like you never ritual summon this. This even says you specifically special summon, right? Not that card. You don't play that card. Okay. Special summon a Mikanko monster from your hand, ignoring its summoning conditions. Special summon. So, not a ritual summon. So this goes to the graveyard. Can't special summon it back. So, alright, I guess. Just fairly annoying, I would say. And kind of jank overall. But like in general, ritual decks are just completely jank. But like the issue is if they become like too generic, do you really want to see like, for example, a Snake Eyes player dropping Revendread Executor on you, and then having their whole board also be untargetable, and also have like a banish, a spell, traps, and a monster, just cause. well, yeah, that's not exactly ideal either. So, uh, ritual support, like how we got massive fusion support with like branded, would be kind of appreciated, I suppose. Like, if you just consider like the Despia cards, like, and not just like Fallen of Elbaz stuff. These cards are actually insanely cracked just for like fusion decks in general. So instead of like polymerization, instead we can grab Theater, and Theater actually does a lot. So this works as like a polymerization every single like turn, right? And this also has some like floating effects where we can use the ability of Aluber in conjunction with Theater of the Branded to summon back our fusion monsters to give them like more staying power, which is nice if we had something like this with rituals. That would be nice, right? I think the Libromancer cards are not generic though. So Libromancer is kind of like this, but not generic, I believe. So first appearance. Add one during the main phase. You and ritual summon one Libromancer ritual monster from your hand. Yep. So this is not generic. And also all of the Libromancers search Libromancer cards, and then the Libromancer cards they add search more Libromancer cards. So not generic. If these were generic, that would just help out like a bunch of ritual decks in general. But like, I mean, there's also like the homogenization issue where like every deck starts to become like the same. So like you kind of saw this issue somewhat with like Hulk, like when Hulk was still legal, right? Uh, a bajillion different decks were just like bringing out some guys, and then all of a sudden they make Hulk, bring out Jet, special summon Jet, special summon Auroradon, and then they like do the full Auroradon line, and that's then board essentially, because that was the best thing you could do with like apparently every single deck ever. It was just like a more or less efficient way of going Hulkdon. So like in general though, I prefer like when cards can can really stand on their own, like when archetypes can stand on their own. So like using some generic cards always makes sense. That's kind of what they're there for. But when like your end board is just all generic cards and no archetype cards, that's a pretty sad archetype in my opinion. Like Monadium, kind of in that category. So not having a boss sponsor to call your own just feels bad to me. You know, you're just dropping all of these like main deck guys to just put them in the graveyard. So you know, I guess one way to like put my well to convey my feelings here into words is like this fun phrase. You know, okay, you're playing Monadium, right? So where are all of the Monadium cards in the graveyard? You know, they're all in the graveyard. But when you're playing like an archetype, and after you finish setting up your board, and the only like cards from that archetype that you have are in the graveyard, that's just kind of miserable. So boss monsters aside, if you at least have like some spell traps or something from the archetype, maybe that's meaningful. So like a deck that I think really is kind of like lame because of this is just Snake Eye. Like before we just consider the deck as a whole, like right, you're just spamming out generics, and that's all the deck really does. I guess there is Subversion, and then like Flambridge effect, but aside from that, there not really much is going to be activated. You're not really seeing anyone ever resolve like Startling Stare. The Snake Eyes, no one's adding this card either. It's just mostly seeing like Baron, Warlord Savage, IP Masquerena, Apollosa, Promethean Princess. If you think about this, every single extra deck card that Snake Eyes makes is not a Snake Eyes card. And all of the main deck cards here, they don't really do anything on their own. So you have to go into the generics, but realistically, what Snake Eyes effects are being used like over the course of a duel that affect your opponent? Subversion. This is pretty much it. Subversion. And I don't think there was like much else. Some people play Silvera, I guess, which is like a targeted Omni Negate. So that's cool, I guess. Aside from that, we're looking at Subversion. Sure is a card. If people are even running it in their deck, there's some people probably running neither. So, in this case, you can flamberge your opponent and put one of their monsters like from their graveyard or on field to their back row. Yay. Fun. Amazing. Epic. I'm running out of descriptor words for this. But essentially, yeah. Not having boss monsters of your own cast decks. So at least like all of the ritual monsters are kind of like going to be used as like boss monsters, so that's great. It's just the functionality is not so good, simply put. Like they brick pretty hard because the issue with like ritual monsters for the most part, with the exception of like Makako, is if you only open like one of these ritual cards, they're all bricks. And even if you open this with like a ritual spell, you're still bricked. So yeah, these cards essentially do nothing. Like, what do you think Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer does in your hand? Like, if it were the equivalent of this? Nothing. It can't activate its effects because it's not on field, but you can't get it on field because, you know, you don't have the cards to do so. So, yeah, miserable time. And ritual spells, it's the kind of on the other in the other direction where okay, now I have all these monsters that aren't like boss monsters, don't really get me into boss monsters necessarily, that I have to set up like for the tributes of my ritual monsters. Now I have nothing in this regard as well. So can't ritual summon. Pain. I guess you do have like incantations though. So the issue though I have with incantations is I can't get rid of like these incantations after I put them on the field, so I'm locked out of my extra deck. So they only lock you uh specifically when they're on the field. So you can't like use them to like summon stuff from the extra deck, but why can't they just not be used as material? Or like the summons of cards from like the extra deck or whatever. Well, that's miserable, I guess, you know? I guess the closest thing we have to Despy is just Incantation. Because they're like pretty decent, I guess, actually. They're like a lot of 2-card combos and stuff. But yeah, pretty miserable overall. If we were to just like look at also like these cards though, I'm pretty sure there of course is no play you can make with one card in hand, so even if it's like a pretty mediocre play, as long as you have something that's better than nothing, right? That's my opinion. So let's see, this is going to be able to add a Novelle's Pendulum Monster and one Petition Pendulum Monster for your hand deck. Special summon one to each field. You cannot use monsters as material for Fusion Synchro XYZ or Link Summon except for Novelle's and Petition. Okay, so I'm pretty sure how you're supposed to use this card is you summon this to your field and then you give your opponent the Fusion Monster. And then you can use the effect to add a card when this is summoned. Then there's a Pendulum effect. You control a ritual monster, you can target one monster in the field. Yeah, this isn't even a 1-card combo. You need to summon a ritual monster somehow after this, so you require one more card, I guess. And then you can tribute Poissonnaire de Novelles for this. Then that will allow you to scale Poissonnaire de Novelles, and then you can use the effect to tribute like your opponent's monster, I believe. That's how that works, but yeah. I think that was the only like 1-card combo. I don't know if this deck actually does anything going first. I guess you can set up the Omni Negate, which is something. So yeah. Ritual monsters just suffering from being bricks in hand, and how the mechanic works in general is complicated. That's why like you can understand that like Drytron essentially removed the need for you to learn these ritual rulings because this deck just functions differently. Because the ritual spell doesn't work by level, it works by like changing attack and tributing stuff for attack to match your ritual monster's attack, which is weird, but pretty good ritual support to an extent, but this actually locks you out of stuff as well, so that's problematic for the same reason that the incantation stuff is problematic. So cannot be normal summoned slash set, must be special summoned with the effect of a dry drawn card. And there's also this here. You cannot special summon monsters except for monsters that cannot be normal summoned slash set the turn you activate this effect. So you cannot special summon monsters except monsters that cannot be normal summon slash set means you can't special summon back, for example, a copy of Diviner with Spray Elf. That's just not a thing you can do, right? You could normal summon Diviner, of course, right? You cannot special summon it because it can be normal summon slash set, which is confusing, but this would mean, for example, you can never play Snake Eye Drydron because of how it works, right? So, yeah. There's also the conditions to activate these cards anyways, which requires either a Drydron monster or a Ritual monster to begin with, which makes it even more improbable, but these cards just generate a lot of advantage, and the XYZ monster helps out a lot with this. But yeah, in general, I don't feel like Rituals are getting that much love right now, so the mechanic specifically is kind of like being killed off. That's kind of like how I feel it'll be going forward, right? So for like Fusion, for example, Tearlaments kind of like break all the rules of Fusion summoning, right? So if we were to describe Fusion summoning a few years back, it'd be just like we have like maybe a monster effect that can rituals or not ritual fusion summon, but you still need the materials, and then there's uh, cards that grab like your fusion cards, and then you can fusion summon with that. You still need the materials, so that's kind of how it works, right? And you have like a card like Fusion Deployment to help you out a bit. You have like a Hero Lives to summon like Prisma to also help you out a little bit. And right now it's not that great, yeah. So if we were to look at Tearlament, now you don't even need a fusion spell. And then you look at cards like Fusion Destiny and Branded Fusion. Now you don't even need the monsters to fusion summon. Like you don't need them in hand. You don't need to search them. You don't need to put them on field or anything. They can be just in deck. Just the fusion spell is enough now. So at what point do we get like ritual monsters that like Makanko again? You know, Makanko's already in that direction where it's like, all right, we have a ritual monster in hand, and it'll just ritual summon itself with no cost or anything. Or maybe it'll ritual summon by sending cards from the deck without even requiring a ritual spell. Or maybe you ritual summon a ritual monster from your deck using a card also from your deck. It becomes a little bit like ludicrous, so yeah. Right now there's not that much to talk about, I suppose. So we'll call it here. And that's essentially just ritual summoning. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.